Good afternoon, Southern California. I'm John Baldwin with John Hart Real Estate, and today is May 16th. Happy Monday, everybody. Wanted to touch on an article from HousingWire.com today, and it has to do with sort of questions as realtors we get when we're dealing with buyers and we're trying to, understand their motivation, what's going on, and a lot of them are trepidatious or cautious, and they're waiting, and you're always trying to figure out why are they waiting. And some of them have stated, all right, well, we think that the market is going to have a major correction, that we're going to have a crash like 2008 2009. And I think we're fundamentally in a very different place, and this is a misplaced assumption that a lot of buyers had, but that's mostly because their only experience in a shift in market is a very dramatic shift that happened in 0809 when the market just went off a cliff. Now remember, we're in a very different boat than we were then. We don't have the subprime mess that basically created very shaky underpinnings of the market. The market today is on very solid footing, meaning almost everybody who's bought real estate over the last decade has had money, income, credit, assets. They are none of these sort of liar loans, or very few of them. I'm sure there are some out there, but very few of the liar loans, very few of the have a pulse, here's a $500,000 kind of loans. None of them negative amortization or subprime paper. So we're not dealing with this looming toxic mess that's going to blow up and just, tear down the market. But that is everybody's memory. And if you're not in the industry, you may be thinking anytime the market shifts, it has a dramatic shift. And that's just not the case, because especially right now, the fundamentals of this market are very different. And that's what this article is about today. So this is housingwire.com. This was published on the 12th. So I'm going to get into it here. So almost 45% of homeowners are now equity rich. Now, what does that mean? What does equity rich mean? So, a homeowner is considered equity rich when they have at least 50% equity in their home, a feat more easily accomplished when skyrocketing home price appreciation widens the gap between what someone owes on their mortgage and the value of their house. So think about that. Everybody who's bought prior to the last, year bought a mortgage here, and then the market took off. So they built all that equity. So we have a ton of people sitting with a giant amount of equity, especially if you bought more than 2-3 years ago. If you bought 2013 to 2010, you're sitting pretty. If you bought prior to 2004, oh my God, as long as you haven't used your house like an ATM machine and just kept pulling money out of it, you should be sitting on a pile of equity. And that's what makes this market fundamentally different from the 0809 market and the crash and everything. It was because we don't have these toxic underpinnings that make the market shaky, that make the market, top heavy. Maybe that's not the right word. But we basically don't have something that's going to lead to a cascade of houses coming on the market, because we don't have a bunch of people who borrowed to the absolute max and then things blow up. But let's get into this a little bit. About 44.9% of mortgage residential properties in the first quarter of 2022 had at least 50% equity in the property. That's almost half the market with 50% equity. That means literally, if all these people lost their house tomorrow, they could put it on, lost their job tomorrow, they could put their house on the market and sell it, pay commissions, pay off the mortgage, pay all the taxes and everything, and still walk away with money in the bank in most locations around the country. So this is why we're in a fundamentally different place than we were in 2008, 2009. So, homeowners continue to benefit from rising home prices. Record levels of home equity provide financial security for millions of families and minimize the chance of another housing market crash like the one we saw in 2008. So now they do caveat that. They do say higher home prices and rising interest rates make it extremely challenging for first-time home buyers to enter the market. But I want people to remember, yes, we had unbelievable and I'm gonna use, I'm gonna call it artificially low interest rates for the last couple years, like 2.5%. I have a client who locked in a 2.5% mortgage on a $2 million loan for 30 years. That's unbelievable. So, we're in a situation where we have a lot of equity, and if a bunch of people lost their job tomorrow and had to sell the house, or they could pull some equity out and live off the equity for a little while, or there's so much that people can do that they don't have to necessarily sell the house. That's why real estate is such an amazing asset class. It's very different than because you can live in it, you can rent it, you can hold on to it, you can leverage against it. It is such a different type of asset, and that's why it's one of the best hedges against inflation too, because it's a performing asset. So you can park the money, have cash flow off of it, and then it rises with appreciation and everything. So this is why I want to give me a call, 213-973-3777. Let's talk about your housing strategy. If you haven't invested in a duplex, triplex, or quadruplex, I think this is the best type of hedge against inflation, is having some income property where you can park some money and then get cash flow off of it. And it's just such a great asset. So again, I'd love to talk with you about it, and see what your strategies for building your real estate empire are. So give me a call, 213-973-3777, and let's get your house sold.